She thought her husband was about to give her the most beautiful birthday gift of her life. Instead, he placed an envelope in front of her with 2 words that completely destroyed her world: divorce papers. But what happened after that night would change both of their lives forever. Emily Carter sat at a luxury restaurant surrounded by friends and family, smiling as everyone sang happy birthday. Her husband Daniel sat beside her, unusually quiet. When the cake arrived, Emily looked at him and whispered, "I thought you forgot." Daniel forced a smile and said, "How could I forget?" Then he reached into his jacket and placed a white envelope in front of her. Emily smiled, thinking it was a love letter or perhaps a special gift. But when she opened it, her smile disappeared. She stared at the papers in disbelief. "Daniel, what is this?" she whispered. He simply said, "I want a divorce." The entire table went silent. Emily looked around at everyone's shocked faces and suddenly realized that some of them already knew. Her heart shattered. If you were sitting in Emily's place, would you stay calm or would you walk away immediately? Emily drove home alone that night, holding back tears, until she reached the bedroom. For 15 years, Daniel had been her husband, her best friend, and the person she believed would grow old beside her. She had stood beside him when he had almost nothing. When his business failed, she sold her jewelry to help him pay his debts. When he felt like giving up, she reminded him of his dreams. She never imagined that the man she had sacrificed so much for would one day hand her divorce papers on her birthday. The next morning, Daniel sent her a message saying he was sorry. Emily asked one question: "Why did you do this in front of everyone?" His answer was painfully simple: "Because I didn't have the courage to do it alone." Emily stared at those words with tears in her eyes. She realized something heartbreaking: Daniel hadn't suddenly stopped loving her that night. He had been leaving her emotionally for a long time while she was still fighting for their marriage. Have you ever loved someone who was already letting you go? Tell me in the comments. The divorce process began, and Emily decided not to fight over the house, the car, or the money. Her lawyer asked if she was sure. Emily nodded and said, "I don't want anything that reminds me of him." She moved forward, even though moving forward was incredibly painful. Months passed. Emily started a small photography business. At first, she struggled. Some days she barely made enough money to pay her bills, and some nights she cried herself to sleep. But slowly, her life began changing. Her business grew. She started traveling, meeting new people, and discovering the woman she had forgotten while trying to save her marriage. 2 years later, Daniel contacted her. His voice sounded broken. "Emily, I made the biggest mistake of my life." She asked, "Why?" He admitted there had been another woman, but the new relationship hadn't given him the happiness he expected. "I miss you," he whispered. Emily closed her eyes and replied, "I miss the man I thought you were." That one sentence told him everything. Would you give an ex another chance if they came back after losing you? Months later, Daniel came to Emily's photography studio. He looked older and tired. He apologized for everything. "You gave me the best years of your life," he said, "and I treated them like they were replaceable." Emily listened quietly. Daniel finally asked the question he had been afraid to ask: "Is there any chance we could start over?" Emily looked at him with tears in her eyes, but this time her tears were not from heartbreak. They were from finally understanding her own worth. "I forgive you," she said. Daniel looked hopeful. Then she added, "But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to come back." Daniel lowered his head and nodded. He understood that some doors can be forgiven without being reopened. Before leaving, he turned around and said, "Happy birthday." Emily smiled and replied, "Thank you." When he walked away, she didn't chase him. She didn't cry. She simply returned to her work and continued building the life she had once believed was impossible. Years later, Emily understood the real meaning of that terrible birthday. Daniel thought the divorce papers were an ending, but they became the beginning of her freedom. She learned that someone else's decision to leave does not determine your value. Sometimes the person who walks away isn't destroying your future, they are making space for it. Emily never forgot those words on the divorce papers, but she no longer saw them as the day her life ended. She saw them as the day she finally stopped begging someone to love her the way she deserved. So let me ask you one final question. If you were Emily, would you forgive Daniel? Or would you choose never to speak to him again? Comment forgive or never again. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the most painful goodbye becomes the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of your life. Remember, never measure your worth by the person who failed to appreciate you. Sometimes the greatest gift doesn't arrive wrapped in a box, it arrives disguised as goodbye.